You may have noticed that this video is a little bit different than most of my videos. I am coming to you in my most vulnerable state. I don't have any makeup on, and my hair is, let's just say it's a little greasy. But I was very strategic on why I did this. Because today we are talking about mental health, and specifically my mental health journey. First of all, what is mental health? So, a lot of the time when people talk about mental health, they look at it in a negative connotation. When in reality, it's not any more negative than talking about someone's physical health. It's just the health of your mind and how strong it is and able to withstand certain circumstances. I'm going to be talking about my mental health journey throughout my life, just briefly, but enough so that you get the general idea of where I've been and to where I am now. That way you have reference for the future videos throughout this little mini series that I'm going to be doing. Let's look at from birth to about age 8. I was a pretty happy child, tried to get attention any way I knew how. I had a very strong maternal instinct, and I loved taking care of my younger brother. Absolutely loved it. Was probably treated him much like a baby doll, but it's okay. Around age 8, a little bit before that probably, I started noticing that all of my friends had their ears pierced, and I had the desire to get mine pierced as well. So my mental health was more so comparing at that stage in my life. I compared what I looked like to what a lot of my friends looked like, and I started making decisions about what I liked and what I didn't like. Now, moving ahead from ages 9 to 11, I started to have a lot of mental health awareness, and that my experiences were a lot different than some experiences of my friends, and that made up my mental health and the resiliency behind it. I started realizing that my inner voice was telling me very different things from what everybody's inner voices around them were telling them. That I had my own internal experience that was dictated by everything that I had gone through up until that point in my life. I also didn't understand that there were different things I could do throughout my day to help strengthen my mental health. So it was just kind of there. It was just kind of existing at this point in my life. Now, moving on again, from ages 11 to 13, I started to fixate on my body image and what I looked like compared to the rest of my peers. This hurt my mental health drastically. It went pretty much downhill from this point on in my life, because I started realizing that I didn't look like my peers and that I may talk a little different and that I wasn't growing like the rest of my peers were. I grew until I was about 12 years old, and then I just stopped. So I'm sitting at a mere 5'3" tall. At this age, I also lost my best friend, who I need to clarify that she didn't die. We just grew apart. Who input a lot of the good and positive things into my mental health. She told me I looked fine, and I looked beautiful, and I was smart, and I was resilient, and I was confident. And when I lost that input, I didn't understand that I had to put that input back in myself. And I had to start saying those things to myself in order to not lose that aspect of my mental health. Moving on up again to ages 14 through 16, I had a lot of mental depressive episodes. I would call this my midpoint. If you were to look at my mental health on a scale, I was probably about here. I really wasn't that great, but I wasn't at my lowest point in my life. I had a lot of depressive episodes where I would get very, very sad for very long periods of time, and I just kind of quit caring about anything. Didn't really focus on a whole lot during this time. I started arguing with my mom a lot more. I started lashing out at the rest of my family members because the confidence and the strength in my mental ability just wasn't there, and it started to affect the people around me. Those episodes also looked like not bathing as much as I should, letting my room get into a disastrous state. I remember there were times when I would literally have to sleep under a pile of clothes on my bed because I didn't want to fold them and put them away. It also looked like not doing my homework until last minute. It looked like procrastinating. It looked like yelling at my parents. It looked like yelling at my siblings. It looked like getting in fights with them for no reason other than to get attention. Now, let's move on up to ages 17 and 18. It gets pretty interesting here because I started to realize that I could take control of my mental health myself and start implementing things into my life to help me be stronger and more mentally able. I started journaling a lot more. I started reaching out to my friends. I started talking about my depressive episodes with my parents. And that helped them understand that my lashing out and my arguments weren't from a sake of hating them. They were from a sake of not liking myself. These interactions helped my mental scale go up. You look at it on the mental scale and you quartered it off, it would be about the fourth quarter. So really not the highest in my life, but definitely doing a heck of a lot better here. Let's look at ages 19 to 20. I was really starting to figure it out. I had taken a year off from school and was just about to start entering into my freshman year of college. I went to a school that was 3 hours away from home. And to be honest, the first 2 semesters went great. I plugged myself into a community that I loved. I worked for somebody that wasn't my dad for the first time in my entire life, which was very scary, but also really rewarding. I was pretty much thriving. And on my scale, I would probably say I was at the highest level I could have possibly been at. Unfortunately, 20 to 21 was the absolute worst on my scale. I was down here. I started doubting myself. I ended up switching my major because I doubted myself that much. So instead of doing something I loved, I was doing something I really didn't like and didn't have any passion towards. I quit doing the work for class. I think I probably made the first C I ever made in my life that semester, and I was crushed. Not only by the grade, but also because I wasn't doing what I loved. I quit taking care of myself mentally. I quit journaling. I was pushing myself too hard and I wasn't taking breaks. I dropped out of school. Come to find out, I had what was called post-viral fatigue syndrome, where my body was working double time, fighting off my own immune system and eating my own hormones. So I didn't have any happy hormones. I didn't have any testosterone. And there's one other hormone I think it eats, but I can't really remember right now. Once I got the medicine to combat that disease, I was starting to feel a lot better. My confidence came back. The fatigue and the inability to want to do things, that faded away. I had more energy. I remember my first week on that medicine finally starting to see progress. I pushed myself and I went to work that day. I went home and I did my laundry and I was exhausted. But I had made progress. Like I said, I actually folded and did my laundry that day. Whereas before, past year, I wasn't doing it. Now, I understand depression is a very real thing, and it's not always due to an underlying condition. It can sometimes just be depression, and I'll talk more about that next week. Ages 22 till now. I am just now getting into the rhythm of things. I figured out that when I need something, I can actually ask for it. So if I need affirmation, I can ask for it. I can ask my best friend, I can ask my now husband, I can ask my mom or my siblings, and they will give me exactly what I need because I know how to ask for it. I take the time out of my day to journal if I need it. I take the time I need out of my day to take a bath. I've learned that in order to keep my mental health strong, I have to do these workouts every day. I can't just put it on the back burner and just assume my mental health is going to stay strong because I did the work previously. It's something that I have to do every day, and I've realized that now, and it's not 100% perfect. You can ask my husband. He sometimes has to remind me to take breaks. He sometimes has to remind me to take a shower because honestly, that's really hard for me to do sometimes. But with a great support system, I've been able to get to where I am now. I do still have depressive episodes if I'm not on top of my mental health and doing my workouts. And what works for me mentally might not work for you mentally. However, I am very interested in making a video about that. So if you'd like a whole video dedicated to the workouts you can do for your mental health, leave a comment down below. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I know it was a little bit different, but I wanted to give you some background for the future videos going forward, a little bit briefly about what my history with mental health was and my mental health journey. So if you'd like to hear more about depression and what it is and how it can affect your body, stay tuned for next week's video when I really get into depth about what all that's about. Until then, I love you all. See you all next time.